having 100% congruent delivery that occurs when one believes in the message completely. Daniel Suhr.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning. Morning.
Today, I'm going to be talking about the battle of process versus outcome. And the overall story and the framework that I'm going to be telling you about is when I used to do tutoring for the SAT, and every high school student's desire to get the max score, which is about an 800 on the SAT math. So that was my specialty. And everybody wants that, and to do that, we have to focus on the process, not the outcome, not the number at the end of the test or the practice test, what have you. So the first thing is, and I would tell all my students this, is it's just like we're building a house. The foundation of any good house is going to be made out of cement, and in cement you have a bunch of grains of sand. All these little facts that influence how we do on the SAT math. So this is examples like the Pythagorean triangle, 5, 12, 13, 3, 4, 5, things like that. And all these little details that any one of them you're probably not going to see on the test when you take it. But if you start pulling these little grains of sand out from the foundation, it's going to slowly be weakened. And eventually there's going to be cracks, and eventually the whole house is just going to come tumbling down. So I would tell every student, we need to focus on making this foundation as solid as we can. And so every time we would do, work together for an hour, we would get a certain number of facts that if they had known, they would have done better. They can go faster, they can go quicker. And I don't even mean just know it like the way that we can all figure out what 71 plus 19 is. It takes us a few seconds. I mean know it like what's 2 plus 2. We all know it's 4, and we know it really fast. There's a difference between knowing that and knowing what 113 plus 27 is. We can all figure that out eventually. But you see what I'm saying? There's that difference. And to have a strong foundation, you have to just know everything just fast, fast, fast. So that's the foundation of this house. The second thing is the walls. There's an old Will Smith story that I love. And he said that when he was a boy, his dad took him and his brother out, and he tore down all the bricks from the front of their house. Tore them down, piled them up, and he said, "All right, boys, you need to build this brick wall." And so the boys started piling it up, and this was about 10 in the morning, and they wanted to get done by dinner. So they just threw all the bricks on there, and the wall was terrible. So the dad tore it back down. And the next day they came in, they're like, "All right, we're going to have a plan, we're going to build this, we're going to line everything up." They threw it together, they were done by noon, and the wall was terrible again. His dad tore it back down. It took them over a year to build this wall. And this is a true story. And they said that eventually they realized that the key is to learn how to lay one brick perfectly. And that's how you get a wall of any size for your house. And so what I would tell my students is, let's not focus on 30 problems in this hour. Let's focus on mastering 3 problems or 2 problems and learn how to do that skill perfectly. And if you can do that, then we can go on to the next one, and we never have to come back to that problem that we worked on last week or a month ago. For some students, we would work for 6 months on these things, and if you don't commit to learning one thing perfectly, you're never going to learn it. So that's number 2, and those are the walls. And if you have good walls on a house, it's going to be solid. The third thing is the roof of any house. And you need, the roof, when it comes to this metaphor, is more about emotional protection. So when a student works on a problem and they don't get it right, it hurts a little bit. And it's like, well, why am I not doing this? And I love the story of The Far Side. It was a really funny comics in the 80s and 90s, and he would have the stereotypical 98-pound weakling. And he would be super skinny, really young, and he could just never lift anything. And I say, if we took this 98-pound young fella and we put him on a weight machine with some ridiculous amount of weight, like 500 pounds, 45-pound plate after 45-pound plate, we put him on there and say, "All right, man, let's lift this, let's do it." And he starts there with his arms, he's trying to bench press it, and he just works, just goes, and he just can't do it. So you say, "Okay, time out, let's review how to lift weights. Okay, let's get you motivated and pumped up, and now let's try it with your legs, let's do some squats." And he gets on there, and he gets on the squat machine, and he just goes, and you still can't get it. Now if that young guy gets off the weight machine and says, "Peter, I just couldn't get it. I must be really dumb." Would that make any sense at all? No. But you'll have math students who say they'll work on a problem that they've never been taught how to do it, or maybe they've seen it once and they're still trying to learn those techniques and they can't get it. And they don't say that, but they'll think it a little bit inside. And that's what stops the learning process, because nobody wants to feel that way. But when it's weightlifting, nobody was going to say, oh, I feel dumb because I can lift these weights. But if it's math, for some reason we have this belief. And so that's the third thing is with the students is I tell them, it's about how much work you've put in and the amount of energy you've put in. It's not about intelligence. And so it's not, don't stress out when you can't do one of these problems. It's not because you're not intelligent, it's because you haven't been taught how to do it properly. And so that's the real goal, is learning that when you can't do something, it's because you haven't been taught those techniques. And Malcolm Gladwell did some research into that, and they found that there's a direct correlation between how long you're going to work on a problem if you think it's an intelligence test, or if you think it's more about effort. And so students in cultures across the world that really associate math with just a pure effort, if you put in an hour's worth of work, you're going to make an hour's worth of progress. If you put in no work, you're going to make no progress. And so cultures that do that test higher on math scores at every grade level, all the way up through high school, through college, and they're doing a lot better compared to the U.S. in math, because a lot of students that I work with have this belief that it's about their intelligence level, instead of just saying, if you put in an hour a week, and we work on the foundation, where we work on our list of memorizables, and then we work on the roof, where we practice one problem perfectly instead of jumping around, scatterbrain and kind of ADD-ish, which, I love to do that too. I love to drink an energy drink and spaz out and do all those things. But it's not the best way to learn how to do something perfectly. So those are these three things. And this process versus outcome really applies for anything, I think, that we're trying to learn. And one is work on that foundation, review it every day, and don't skimp on these little grains of sand. And we don't see that often. And you can get away with a few. I fully admit that nobody can get an 800 every time, because that's basically impossible. But there are times when you can do well, and without having the perfect foundation. The walls got to be solid, and then there's that roof for the emotional protection, which is the most important part. And we don't talk about, especially as a man, we don't talk about emotional protection too much in America. But remember, some very wise men have been carpenters.